Good morning, my name is Tony Capps, and it's my honor today to be sitting down with Pastors Ancil and Donna Carter, who have been at this church for many, many years, and we're going to talk about that a little bit later. But I want to thank you both for coming out this morning and us taking some time to talk about the history of what God has done. You guys have been instrumental in the kingdom of God for many, many decades. And it's just an honor for me to have been asked to sit here and chat with you today. So let's jump right in. Pastor Carter, when were you born?
I was born on July the 7th, 1923.
Now, if my math still works, that's about 93 years ago. Is that correct?
That's right, and I'm looking forward to about 3 weeks from now being 94.
94 years old
I
in
get
July.
so happy when I think about that.
So when people around the world see this video, this is obviously in June of 2017. So in another 30 years, you'll be 123 years old. So in case they see it for posterity's sake. Where were you born, Pastor Carter?
I was born in Morgan County, Kentucky, a little place called Wrigley, Kentucky.
Wrigley, Kentucky. And when you grew up, did you grow up in a community, or did you grow up somewhere else? Where did you grow up?
Well, we lived right in back of the post office, about 3 miles.
About 3 miles behind the post office. So were you on a farm?
I was on a farm.
You were on a farm. What did you do on this farm? What did you raise on this farm?
Well, on the farm, we raised chickens. There was one time we had, I think, 500 Leghorn chickens on the farm.
500 chickens.
Yeah, so you gathered about a case or two of eggs a day.
My.
Well,
Well,
we had horses, hogs, and cattle.
so it was a big farm.
Yes, my dad always liked the white-faced Herefords.
White face. That's great. And Miss Donna, where were you born?
I was also born in Morgan County, Kentucky, but I was a little bit more in town
Okay.
than he.
What did your parents do?
My mother and father were both school teachers.
Really? Any connection with you or anybody else in the church now, or that they might have taught?
Yes, actually, my mother taught Ancil in 4th grade, I believe.
Really? So y'all had a connection before you had a connection.
Yes.
Now I understand that you have been married 67 years,
Right.
and so you must have gotten married when you were 9. Because you don't look old enough to be married 67 years.
Thank you.
But with all due respect, and to God be the glory, I understand that you're 84 years old.
Right.
And you have been living with this man for 67 years and trying to take care of him and keep him a straight line along with God's help. Is that right?
Oh, he doesn't need that.
He's done pretty good. Well, Pastor Carter, let me ask you about your calling into ministry. Tell me a little bit about that, when you were called to be in the ministry.
I left the farm when I was quite young and went to Shelby, Ohio, and worked there a while. Then we went to Detroit. And in Detroit, I was working in what they call the helicopter factory. There wasn't any helicopters then. So I helped carry the parts to make the helicopter. Then they'd send me to the stock room to get parts. And there was a fellow there, I can just see him now. He would always say to me, "What about going to church with me?" And I thought, well, that's not asking a whole lot. So I went to church with him. But the Lord had been dealing with my heart ever since I was a little boy. So I remember when I was about 8 years old, where we used to sell the tobacco there in Wrigley, I went to a revival. And I remember standing and holding to a post that held up the roof. And I was crying. And I said, "Lord, if you'll let me live till I know what I'm doing, I want to serve you." So he called on me when I was about 18 and went to church with the fellow and gave my heart to the Lord.
Now, how did you lean in then to ministry, your ministry calling? How did that come about?
Well, used to when you went to church, people testified.
Okay.
And when I'd get up you know, I'd feel like I need to test face up. And it seemed like there was a spirit would come over me to just keep on going. So I got the anointing, and I don't know when I got the call.
But you started preaching even when you were testifying.
That's right, yeah.
And you just knew that was in your spirit. Well, let's talk about how you and Miss Donna met. When was the first time you saw her? And then if you remember, how did y'all get to dating and get together?
Well, I was building a church about 2 blocks from her house. And me and one of the workers was driving by. She used to be at school.
Majorette.
Majorette.
A majorette?
And
Okay.
she must have been laying out in the sun in her majorette suit.
Okay, she was out getting some sun.
So I said to the fellow with me, Noah Spence at that time, I said, you can't help what you see, but you can quit, you don't have to look so long.
So that's the first time you saw her. Now, how did you get together then?
Well, on a Sunday night, we was in a building, our first church, when I went there. My brother worked here, and they called me to come up for revival. And they was having about 7 in church or Sunday school. So the Lord gave us a great move of the Spirit. So Donna had a convertible, and she came by, her and her mother and a friend or something. And I was playing my tambourine. She said, well, what is that? And making that noise. She said, I'm going in. And Mom said, no, you're not going in. I said, I'm going in there. So the Lord spoke to her that night. I believe that convicted her. And it started from there.
So you see, you got a majorette, and she's interested in a tambourine player. That just sounds exciting to me. Miss Donna, do you have anything you want to add to that, or can remember about that time that you started getting together with each other?
Well, that was a very exciting service. I'd never been in anything like that.
Of course.
And I was attending the Presbyterian church in town. So I thought it was just so exciting.
Yeah.
So the Lord got a hold of my heart that night, that's for sure.
Wow.
So he didn't play the tambourine anymore that night, so I had to go back again.
It's good to keep playing that tambourine. It's a song about a tambourine man, but we won't talk about that today. Let me ask about your children and your grandchildren. Tell me about your children and your grandchildren, and then we're going to talk about the ministry itself.
We have 2 children, a boy and a girl, Joel and Anna Sue. We have 5 grandchildren and 8 great-grandsons.
Wow, 8 great-grandsons, the
Yes.
perfect number, 8, the number of new beginning. That's a lot of grandsons.
Right.
That's really incredible. And I know you guys, now go back with me a little bit and tell me, were you pastoring that church at that time, or just ministering there, or when did you actually come to Fairborn to begin a church ministry? You said it had 7 people in the church when you came?
Yes, during that revival, we packed the place out.
Were you the evangelist or the
Yes.
pastor?
No, a man named C.J. Combs
Okay.
worked at the base,
Okay.
and he was a Church of God preacher. So at the base, when they bring in these airplanes, wings, they take off this new lumber, and you could buy a truckload of new lumber for $1. They wouldn't give it to you, but they'd sell it to you for $1.
Oh my.
So then a truckload of concrete blocks, you could buy that for $1. So he bought enough things probably for $20, $30 to build the church.
Amazing.
So, but when I came there, his wife had took real sick, and he had to quit ministering to take care of her. So when I had the revival, we had such a revival that so many people came and got saved and things of that sort, that I started from there in 1947.
What a beautiful, beautiful story of ministry. And so you were at that building. About how long did you stay in that building? And then where did you move? I know the church grew, and you kind of grew out of that building, and you had to go somewhere else. Where then did you?
I went over on about a mile from there.
Mhm.
a street called Straight Street, State
Okay.
Street,
Okay.
and bought 2 or 3 lots there and built a church. It was about probably 30-some feet wide and 60 feet long at that time, which was, back then, it was a good-sized church.
Sure, absolutely.
And
And how long were you there approximately, do you think?
we were there probably 3 or 4 years, and I went to West Liberty, Kentucky on my vacation, but I took a tent with me, set up a tent, and a silly thing happened. This fellow that was a preacher there, we was down to pick a place to set the tent, and there was poison ivy along the highway. And I said, well, just bring me a little gas. So he put a gallon of gas, and we throwed it on the poison ivy and stepped back about 10 foot. And I struck a match, and that's the rest of the story. It blowed up. The fumes had got over there, and it burned off the hair off my arm. She was over with me.
So that was a tent revival that actually did start in the fire, so to speak.
But in that revival, I lifted an offering. Now back then, I got $1,500 cash.
Oh my.
That's like, 50 to 75,000 now.
Sure.
I mean, that's back then. So I built a church there.
Okay. And then you were there for a while and came back and
Well,
to the
while I
sanctuary?
was there, it seemed like everything was just moving. The Lord was moving faster than I could get going there. So I built another church in Sandy Hook. Then I built a church at the atomic bomb down in Pikeville,
Sure.
Ohio. So the church in West Liberty is still going, but the atomic plant didn't carry out the figures and people was going to hire and do, and it lasted long to build. So it was the most moneyed church right then that I ever saw.
Of course.
Those people had to make.
Of course.
Then after that, I think I built 3 churches while I was gone. I was gone about 3 years. Then I came back to Fairborn.
And so from there, did you go to your church that you built on Dayton Yellow Springs Road, or was there more in between, more buildings in between that?
We went from State Street and built on Dayton. Well, we built on to the one at State Street.
Right, another
We
expansion.
built 30, 40 feet on to it.
I see.
But it just kept filling and couldn't take care of the people. So we went to Dayton Yellow Springs Road in 19 and somewhere in the 62 or 3.
Right.
We got the church built and dedicated in 64.
Now that's where I came into the picture and remember both of you. 40 years ago, this year in 2017, I came as your youth pastor and some other ministry things that I did on staff there, and I began to work for you, and we had a great time here. We saw a lot of church growth. I remember we had lots and lots of funerals. It seems like we had 2 funerals every week back then, and I thought, my goodness, there are people dying. And I understood that there was just so many things that had already gone on in the ministry, that had already grown, and some wonderful things. Tell me a little bit about some of your work, Pastor Donna. Tell me a little bit about some of the things that you did in the church. Obviously, as the first lady, you were the pastor's wife, so that was some things that you were always by his side in those times. But what some specific ministries did you get involved and engaged in?
Well, I was his right-hand person. I was the secretary, Christian education director, music director. You know, you were part of that too.
Exactly.
She was the secretary.
So, but in the ministry part, I think probably the 2 most rewarding things were I taught the sanctuary class, Bible class, on Sunday morning. We named it the Fidelis Bible class, and God really blessed. In fact, I was able to lead my mother to the Lord from that Sunday school class.
From the Sunday school class.
Morning, And we got our attendance up to, I believe, 436, if the number serves me right, on one Easter Sunday. And that was just a special time. We had a wonderful group of class officers and workers. It was exciting.
And what about, you said you were involved with music ministry as well. Any particular things that stand out for you in that?
Yes. The Lord blessed me to put together a choir of young people. And we had several youth in the church, as you well know. But we had a few kids who lived in the downtown area of Dayton. And they were very energetic, loved what they were doing in their church, so they brought kids off the street. We had 50 members in this choir. And we took them then to, I had no musical training, but God just blessed, and we were able to put together a competitive choir that went to Columbus the first time for competition and won state. Then we were able to go to national competition, and the first year we were runner-up in 300 point tests, like 3 points winning.
Oh my.
So then after that we went to the nationals and were able to win the national championship.
That's a long way from 7 people to that kind of ministry. I understand you took some tours and took the choir on several tours during that time?
Yes, and I think you took them on one too.
I did. I think so.
We sang in churches and camp meetings and special events from Missouri to New York State, and covered quite a bit of territory with them. We even went in old church buses that we had sometimes, and I can remember seeing the kids pushing that bus up a freeway when we'd run out of gas.
Some great memories.
Lot of fun.
Wasn't so much fun that particular time. It got great memories later on. It was good.
It was all good.
And I remember while I was here, you bought the first brand new bus, touring bus, and we got to go in style. And I can't think about us ever breaking down in that bus.
No.
We traveled an awful lot of miles there. Now,
Could I throw this in?
Absolutely.
That bus, we had a extra transmission put in.
Okay.
It would run faster. I know he's taking the choir to Columbus, and we'd went and ate and coming back running late, and I was going in and out the traffic with that bus. Policeman stopped me about the time I got to go in the gate. Said a bus don't do that. You don't drive that way. He didn't know I had an overdrive in it, in the extra transmission. So I took throwing that in there.
Well, you've always loved to drive. I remember one of the times that you asked me, let's go visiting. We need to find somebody that needs to have a relationship with Christ. And we drove out somewhere out on a farm place or something, and we went up this driveway into this people, and I remember you knocking on the door and going in, and there was these 2 elderly people there that had never been taught about Jesus, never heard about Jesus, and I remember that. Can you tell us a little bit about that? I can't remember all of those details.
That was out about 2 or 3 miles out in the country, and on what they call West Enon Road. Now there's $500,000 houses there now, but there wasn't no houses there then, only just farmers. So I remember we went up this driveway, and the older couple, we went in and talked with them and won them to the Lord Jesus Christ.
Well, you said we, and I appreciate that, but I remember sitting back amazed just watching you talk to these 2 people and leading them to Christ, and it's a memory that I will never forget. There's another memory that I'll never forget when we were having a revival here at Dayton Yellow Springs Road. We were in the middle of a revival, and it was a certain time in our country that some weird things were going on. Do you remember what I'm thinking about and talking about?
Oh, what was the state overseer's name?
Larry Timmerman.
Larry Timmerman was there. and he was all fired up.
And we had a packed out house. It was
Yeah.
just full.
I don't know where I had to go to the hospital or what, but the night before this happened, man, he's really beating the devil up. And I thought, man, you know, you got to be careful. You don't just jump on the devil and go knocking him around. So the next night, just before I got back, this young fella, he had took all of his clothes off. He was a teenager.
During the streaker generation.
Right, he was up preaching, really going. And so when he looked up, here come the fellow right down the aisle towards him naked.
Start naked. And I remember 3 or 4 of our Kentucky men growed up on the farm and in the mountains, took off after him and chased him for 2 city blocks until the police
They
got there.
chased him almost a mile and a half.
Oh, did they really?
Yeah. Chased him all the way down to where he lived, and he ran in, they ran in too.
That was people. When I have told that story more than one time in pastors' conferences that I've been a part of or something, and it's just one of the most hilarious things. But it's incredible to me that church didn't stop. They just ran him out of the building, and we went on and had a great move, and people got saved and found their place in Christ, and it was just a great opportunity. Any particular other than that, we won't talk about streakers anymore, but many times through the last decades, I think I remember that you broke 1,000 people at Dayton Yellow Springs on the year that I was one of the years that I was here, that the church reached that point of over 1,000. Is that correct?
Yes.
And
I think about the highest we ever went there was around 1,100.
okay, in that church.
Yes.
Right. And then before we talk about this present building and facility that God placed on your heart and you moved to and bought the land, I believe that I just heard that even though this is a multi-denominational church, everybody is welcome. It's not tied to a particular denomination, but you have credentials not only here, ordained bishop through this church, but also you're the oldest living ordained bishop of the Church of God out of Cleveland, Tennessee. Is that correct?
That's what they were telling me. That's what the general overseer told me.
Okay. Well, I think you're going to hold that spot for quite a while. I believe it's going to be hard for anybody to catch it up. That's for sure. So tell me a little bit about the transition and how you felt the need to move from Dayton Yellow Springs Road to a new location. And tell me about the purchase of the property first here. How did you come about this beautiful property on the Beltway? I think it's 675 that goes right past the church. You can see the sign here. How did you come about purchasing this land for the kingdom and for this church?
I'd like to say this before I say that.
Sure.
We sure appreciate you and Pam coming and work with us.
Well, thank you.
I remember we went up toward Maryland, wasn't it? Somewhere up in there.
Pennsylvania.
And we came up there. I can remember just as now, seeing you and her come. I believe there was a new trailer or not.
Yes.
Seemed like there was a new trailer there. I can remember you and her coming out.
Yes.
And talking to us.
Yeah.
So we've had a nice fellowship down.
Well, we have, and we've stayed friends for a long time. What impressed me so much, I was interviewed for 2 different churches on the same weekend, one in West Virginia and this church. And both of them had offered me the same exact position and the same exact salary. And it was on a Labor Day weekend. And you and Sister Donna, I couldn't decide where God wanted me. And I said, God, I just need a sign. And you drove up in my yard. You found out our address and drove all the way from here to Claysburg, Pennsylvania, and just knocked on the door. And I remember the words that you said when you came in. Well, we just wanted to come by and tell you we'd really like for you to come and work with us for a while. And when you left, I was just so overwhelmed. I said, I don't need any other signs from God. If somebody will drive that far, hundreds of miles on the way to vacation to come by and ask us. And so the honor is mine. And I'm humbled that you would do that. So now tell me about the property.
Well, the Lord's always helped me. I mean, everything that's been done and doing and what all, I feel like it was the anointing of the Lord. I've never felt that that I'm not the type of person to do all this by my wisdom or by my knowledge or whatever. So when we went to build again, we went over to pretty close where Kroger's is now. There was nothing in those fields. And there was 160 acres landlocked. So I went to a man named Ober that owned the land up to that. And I bought 20 acres off of him. I gave him $500,000 for 20 acres. And to bring a highway in or through where Kroger's is now into the land. And so I went to Texas, and I went to this big place. It was absolutely huge. The cement company owned the land. So the headquarters was there in Dallas, Texas. So I got on the plane and went there and went in, and they had a lot. They didn't hardly understand me. They was so far out in money and land and oil wells. They didn't know where I wanted to buy something out in the ocean. And finally got to them that I was there to buy a piece of land in Fairborn, Ohio. Well, they finally got checking and looking, and lo and behold, they found it. And I was so excited about they was coming down or what they priced it for. And I think they would have gave it to me if I'd have just, but they had a big sign up for sale, so I went and offered them 300, I think, and about 300,000 for it. I got it for 1,500 an acre. So then when I bought it, Mr. Ober found out, and he told, when I went to buy the 20 acres, now Ober said, I want you to take the salesman, go to the salesman. No, and I said, I want to deal with the head chief. I want to deal with you. So I bought it through him, and he'd signed the contract, and I was paying him, I think $50,000 ever so often to get the, I think I give him, what did I say, $20,000 for the number? I forget what I gave him for the first 28.
That's okay. That's okay.
So he said, I can't believe that I let you do that. I can't believe that. So then he didn't want to carry out. So I took him the payment. No, he wouldn't accept it. Well, the fellow that he tried to get me to deal with, I just went in him and pitched the payment down. He
took the payment. So it was a done deal.
Well, it was already a done deal, but he was quitting taking my payments.
Right.
So the man, he takes the payment and he fired him. So anyhow, he just kept raising the price and raising the price. So Ober offered me 37 acres here with 2 roads, sewer and water, into the front here. Then on the back side, he run in another road, sewer and water. And so I gave him, or he gave me, 330,000 in 37 acres of land with 2 roads, sewer and water in. So this property here is worth over $1 million.
So good things came out of things that weren't
That's
so
right.
good, and that's the way God always works. So you now, how many people will this sanctuary seat now?
This seats 1,100 people, but that's 80 chairs up here. And I think we moved, I don't know where we moved the 2 chairs from up where we have the sound booth now, but it'll seat about 1,000 now.
Praise the Lord for that, and all the gymnasium. And I know there's a lot of programs that have been started in the last 2 decades with Pastor Walden as the new senior pastor. But I want to talk about a little bit more about that a little bit later. But do you remember about how many marriages and/or funerals that you've conducted in your ministry here at Fairborn?
I think roughly about 600 weddings. I can't hardly go anywhere without running across people in all walks of life.
Right.
Yeah.
And I know when I was here, as I said earlier, we had a lot of funerals, but I think a lot of that had to do with not only people that were here at the church, but your community involvement, because you've been here so many years. The community recognized you almost as a pastor to the community. Even some, I believe there's some honors that were given to you by the city at one point in time. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Well, I've done probably close, somewhere in the neighborhood of 700 funerals.
Okay.
At the time I've been. I was looking at pictures today, and I've had 2 congregations that died.
2 congregations that died, and you're still here.
I was looking at Donna's class. It'd seat she'd have maybe 100, 150 just.
Right.
And I looked at that class, and most all of those, all sitting on the front row, all of those men was dead. And I got looking back through there, and most of that whole crowd was dead.
Yeah. You
And
did
that
baby
was-
dedications and then buried them. Several. I remember that. Well, tell me about
About the city thing.
the community honors that I remember there was one particular one. Tell me a little bit about that.
Well, they declared, I have a gold seal on 2 things in here. They declared a certain day Pastor Carter Appreciation Day.
For the city.
Yes. So
Fantastic.
that's a very high honor to
Yeah, that should make you feel really great about how the community feels about you.
Then the judges, now Ed Kimball, we were personal friends. He's still living. And so he lived about 100 miles when we stayed, when we go to Florida. And he said, Brother Carter, I give you the credit to bringing me to Christ. And one of the Hartshell Baptist ladies worked in the, he finally ended up judge in Xenia, Ohio.
Okay.
Then we have a friend, still a friend. He used to come play his horn here and down at the other place. And that's Wetlaufer.
Yeah.
Wetlaufer's wife has died, and he's very sick, and I've been in touch with him.
That's great.
And so we've had a close
Now,
fellowship.
even though you are almost 94 years old, since being the founding pastors of this church, you've had a couple of other pastors that have come before Pastor Walden. He's been here, I think, almost 19 years. But when the transition from your being the senior pastor, my understanding was that the council asked you to stay on as administrative pastor, just as I look at it more as the grandfather of the house instead of the father of the house. And you're still very active in ministry. You do take some time off to go down and warm up in Florida for 2 or 3 months out of the winter, but you're still very active as the not only the founding pastor, but like most churches in Ohio, it's an incorporated church, and you still serve as the president of this body. And as I said, pastor of administration, and you have done all of these decades other ministry outside of the church. but you're still engaged as an advisor, as a counselor, as someone that has been through this journey decades and decades. And I know you, when I've been here, you just, in front of the council, when I've met with them, and it's been an honor to do that over the last few months, and other people that you've honored, this pastor and Pastor Tim and Pastor Lori coming in and to help to build this congregation. But tell me a little bit about what your dream as we finish this time together. Tell me, and I ask you if there's anything you want to add, but the final question that I have is to tell me a little bit about the dream that you had for this city and this congregation years ago, and your dreams, and both of you, your dreams about what you'd love to see God do for the kingdom and do in this church and through this church. What your dream was and what your dream is still for the future of this body.
Well, in the way the Lord had blessed us, you know, from the little church we bought, and State Street we built, the one we built on Dayton Hill Spring Road, we outgrowed those. And at that time, we were in the Church of God. We was one of the fastest coming up churches.
Yes.
In the Church of God. So I felt that I'd like to see a beautiful church. See, I come from an age when there wasn't no Pentecostal churches hardly. We used school buildings or tobacco barns and all of those things.
Storefronts.
Storefronts and
Yes.
tents. So we came up, and it was my desire to build some places for God's children. And it was my desire to see a church here that would at least, if we run like 1,200 or 1,100, then we could always have 2 or 3 services. So I was looking forward to the time that we could do 2,000 to 3,000.
It's evident that property has been built up to be able to serve that many people.
Yeah.
Because the acreage that's here, but also the passion and the dream that you keep praying about for the future. It is really called to be a multi-thousand member church. There's no doubt in my mind, as somebody that's been had the advantage of going and looking in a lot of different places. And I know one of your passions is souls to be saved. And not to miss heaven, but to have eternality in heaven.
Right.
And you want to see those. So you're opened up to people who are not Christians. They don't have any past. From our conversations, Sister Donna, we've talked about, the 3 of us, the 4 of us with my wife there, about souls and about, everyone is welcome. Everybody's welcome to come and help make this the church that God wants it to be. And I think that's so incredible at this juncture of your life, that you would be so passionate about millennials and about youth and about young families and about the elderly as well. It's about all ages of people, all colors of people, all cultures and society. And I just want to tell you how incredible that is to me, as someone that has come behind you and saw you as a spiritual father and has taught me so many things, and your love for the leadership in this church now and for all of those people, and what you still bring to the ministry and what you still do to that. And I just want to say to all of the folks that will be listening to this, probably when we put it on the internet around the world, people will be able to take a look at what God has done through 2 vessels that said, God, we don't see any cap in this. We don't see anything other than what, God, you want to do. And I think that's amazing. Would you like to finish up with any other thoughts or challenges or memories that you have that you have for this body as we move forward until Jesus comes?
I'd like to bring us everyone who are here to see. I want to make 2 or 3 statements. I want to talk about Pastor Walton. I think it's important for the people to understand that I left when I was wanting to hire somebody and train them to be the pastor when I died or ever when, you know. That was my desire. Now, people at my age died in 50, 60, or 70 years old. And I didn't think I'd ever live to see 80 whatsoever. I thought I'd live to be about 68. But I wanted to be sure that we had somebody trained. In the council, when we talk about hiring somebody, they asked me if I would stay. They voted and put in the record that I would serve as a founding pastor and the president of the incorporation.
Of course.
And those things is on record, which a lot of people don't understand.
Yeah.
They know I'm the founding pastor, whatever. So Pastor Walton and Lord, Pastor Walton is a great man.
Yes, he is.
And I encourage the people to get behind him. I cannot afford for him to fail. And I'm for him. And I appreciate you coming to put on a program of enlargement of the future of this church. I appreciate that.
Thank you.
So my heart is in that. My heart is in this church, growing and growing and growing.
Yes.
We have the room, we have the building, we have things, we're out of debt, and we're trying to stay out of debt. And we're reaching the children, the upward sports, and things of that sort. We have about 300 registered, and I'm excited about it. The Lord's blessed me. This is kind of a hilly piece of property. So I've probably had over $1 million worth of dirt free brought in here and built up around here. Most of this is level now. That's all brought in dirt. Free.
Wow, that's a lot of dirt. And it's amazing how God used you to set the foundation. And all of us ministers that come behind stand on the shoulders of people like you that have paid a heavy price sometimes for positioning this church now for great things that we've never seen. And I know that you would love to see it go greater and larger and bigger, because it represents souls. It represents people. And I am honored to be some small part of this. Over 4 decades now, I've been a part of that. We've had some great times together.
Yeah.
So I honor both of you. Thank you for this time today to do this interview. We will be adding some different things to it as time goes on. We could probably need 50 hours. I was telling Miss Donna this morning, it'd probably take us 50 hours to put hardly anything in this. But with the two of you, may God richly continue to bless all that is yours, your inheritance, your people, your children, your grandchildren, those 8 great-grandchildren. May God fulfill that wish in you, that this church continues to grow for the kingdom, and literally thousands of people, not only tens of thousands of people that have come through these doors in the times that you've been here, but also the thousands more that will come through here, through the Upward Sports program that you guys have developed. And we couldn't have done it if you hadn't been able to have the vision to build the gymnasium. And thanks be to God for your following his lead. Thanks be to God for all of that. Well, thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Yes, please, one more.
I appreciate Donna Christine. She has been an excellent pastor's wife. What we have, she's part of what we have.
Thank you.
She sure has. God bless you.
Amen. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Tom.
And thank you, listening audience. We hope that you will come and visit this church if you're ever in the area. This church's philosophy now is that we want to help you find the right church. We hope that it's this church, Victory Temple. But if it's not this church, we'll help you find the church that God meant you to be in, because you were meant to be a part of the family. And I honor this couple who has given their life. Please come out and visit. Get to know some of the people here, and you'll feel the same way that I do, that this is God's church in his kingdom, and to him be all the glory and honor. Thank you very much.